Masato Masadgamaya Tamaso Maham Jyotirgamaya Mrityormam Amritam Gamaya Avir Avir Maedhi Rudra Yate Dakshinam Mukham Te Namaham Pahi Nityam. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality, and reach us through and through ourselves, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Getting a little echo from that. Well, my subject this morning is unity in diversity. And we're going to be talking about one of the great themes of the wisdom of the East. Unity means the one. Diversity means the many. And we are talking about finding the one in the many. In ancient times, a disciple approached his teacher. Shaunako havai mahashalo angirasam vidivad upasanna prapacha kasminnu bhagavo vigyate sarvam vidam vigyatum bhavatiti. Those old, sometimes I quote the old Sanskrit verse just to show you that this is not a New Age religion. This, what we're discussing this morning, was discussed thousands of years ago. And our question this morning, how to find unity in diversity, Shaunaka approached the great sage Angiras and asked him this famous question, what is that by knowing which all this becomes known? And that question he's asking what is the unifying concept, the truth that will enable us to understand and to know all things? What is the unified key that will help us to unlock the secrets of the universe? This theme is the theme of the ancient Upanishads. It's a theme that finds expression in all of the Upanishads, that is the seeking of the physicist, the biologist, the chemist, everyone is seeking and searching for unity. That is, looking and searching for the thread that runs through the diversity, that enables us to explain things as they are. Why should we be interested? Why should you be interested in finding unity in diversity? Well, for one thing, it will give us knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge just means finding the higher generalization. And that's our goal. That's the goal of all seeking of knowledge. That is to find a unified concept that will explain everything. So this search for unity in diversity, it will give us knowledge, it will give us wisdom, and it will empower us because, well, a disordered crowd, an unruly mob of people just milling around doesn't really have much power. But when that mob of people is ordered and disciplined, they can be organized into an army, which does have power and which does have strength. And so this is a subject that will empower us. You see the American on the seal of the United States, they got the bald eagle, and there he is in his talons. He's holding in the grip 13 arrows, symbolizing the colonies. And what's the moral? What is the symbolism? Well, in unity. In unity there is strength. Standing together, united we stand, divided we fall. And so finding unity in diversity will empower us. So it will give us knowledge, it will give us wisdom, it will empower us, and it will also make us happy. You see, if you have imagine if you had one of the big box of a jigsaw puzzle that has 1,000 pieces in it, and you spread that out on the table, and slowly you begin to assemble that puzzle, and it's very difficult day after day, but slowly a picture, an image begins to emerge. And when you put those final pieces into the puzzle, then you feel happy. You've completed the whole. You can't really have full, perfect happiness until that last piece is put into place. Then you see there's unity in diversity. And that's the secret to all great art, whether it is reading a poem, or looking at a great painting, or reading a novel. All great works of art have what T.S. Eliot called a unified sensibility. It's the unity that gives us the happiness. That's what is it that makes the difference between noise and music? Well, music is just miscellaneous sounds, you see. Noise, but music is like a family. It's organized, it's unified, it revolves around a center, and thus it makes us happy. So our theme is unity and diversity. If we look around us, we see nothing but diversity. We see a world of manifold different things. Each individual thing that we look at appears to be independent of everything else. But if you look at any one thing and try to understand it, that is, let's say that you hold a flower in your hand and you want to fully understand and to explain that flower, you really have to link it up to everything, that is, to the sun and to the climate and to the soil, and to explain that has to be linked up to other things. And all material things in this world are linked together in a community of action. Everything functions and is linked together. We can't understand one thing without connecting it and associating it with another thing. And it's only when we find the unity in the diversity that we can fully explain this world. Everything in this world is connected. It's linked. That is, it's parts of a larger whole. And in Sanskrit, that larger whole, that is the sum total of all material things, is called the Virat. The Virat is the body of God. And so we're going to see, well, it makes sense that this universe is like a body. And it makes sense to think of the world as a body because we're a body. And we know, Yadeveha, Tadamutra, Tadamutra, Tadanveha. That means whatever, that's the principle of mental science. Whatever's here is there. Whatever is there is here. Whatever is in the microcosm is mirrored in the macrocosm, and the macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. And so it's reasonable for us, because we are a whole composed of parts, it's reasonable for us to assume that the universe of material things is a unified whole. And so we can see that physically, all things in the world are connected together, part of a larger whole. But we know too that of ourselves, that we are more than just the physical body. We're also a mind and a soul. We have a body, mind, and soul. And when we look at our mind, we feel that it's a private world, and that it's a world, our mind is separate from other minds, and it is not, we feel as if our mind and our thinking is limited. But as we begin to go deeper into the mind, we begin to discover the truth of the teachings of yoga psychology. That is, that this mind is like a lake, and that our thoughts and feelings are like waves on the lake, and just as it is in our mind, so it is in the collectivity of minds in the world. That is, that there is a cosmic mind, and that our minds are like whirlpools in that vaster cosmic minds. Our mind is part of a collectivity of minds. In Sanskrit, that cosmic mind is called the Mahat. Mahat means the great mind. And so here again, we see unity in diversity. And so we can see a unity in the gross, physical, material world. All things are connected together. We see also that there is a unity of subtle minds, unified in the Mahat. And so too, just as we feel ourselves to be a conscious being, that is a soul, we're a body, mind, and a soul. And just as we feel that we are like a point of light, so there is a great sum total of all of the points of light. That's called, in Sanskrit, that's called Ishvara. The sum total of all the conscious souls and beings in the world is called Ishvara. That is running through all of the individuals in the world. There's like a thread. That thread in the Bhagavad Gita says, Mata parataram nanyat kimchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre maniganaya. It says, Sri Krishna is speaking there in the Bhagavad Gita. he's speaking using the first person, identifying himself with this cosmic consciousness. This Ishvara, that's the Vedanta, that's the name of God in Ishvara, that is the impersonal, personal God. Speaking in that first person, he says that I am like a golden thread that runs through all things, just as a thread connects the pearls in a necklace. So, once again, we see here unity in diversity. So let us look then at this cosmic being. Let's look at this cosmic consciousness that animates the cosmic mind and the cosmic body. Together they make up the great person. In Sanskrit it's called the Adi Purusha. That means that's the great person. And why is he a great person? Well, because we just have one head. We have two arms, and we have two legs. But the great person, Sahasrashisha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapa Sabhumim Veshwato Ritva Atyatishta Dashangulam. Like this, it goes on in the old Vedic texts describing the great person. He has thousands of heads, thousands of arms and legs. And it's a vision of a universal cosmic man. If you read in the Bhagavad Gita, the 11th chapter, Sri Krishna, Arjuna was blessed with this vision. He had described, he asked Sri Krishna, he'd heard about this description of the cosmic man, the Adi Purusha. But reveal that he couldn't understand it, tried to wrap his brain around it. He couldn't do it. So he said, please bless me, give me a vision so I can understand what this is all about. And then Sri Krishna, who's speaking as in the first person, as the Ishvara, as the God of everything, he reveals his nature as the universal person. And Arjuna is stunned at Agni Murdha Chakshushi Chandra Surya Odisha Shrotre Vag Vivitascha Veda. He's describing, he sees this vast being. The sun and moon are his eyes. The wind that's blowing is his breath. The earth is like his feet and his body. And the voices that he hears is the voice of the revealed Vedas. And so like this, he's stunned and amazed. And then he collapses. He can't deal with it. He loses consciousness. And then Sri Krishna again reveals his ordinary human form. So there we see in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you can read about description of this universal person, the universal man, the cosmic man, the Adi Purusha. This universal man is the impersonal, personal God of Vedanta. The universal man is the embodiment of the principle of unity in diversity. So we can ask ourselves then, what is our relationship with this cosmic being? It stands to reason that there is such a being. This world is not a chaos, it's a cosmos. You're kind of driven logically to admit that there is an organic whole. So, given the Shruti, the Yukti and the Anubhava, that is, given the many scriptures who speak of the universal person, and given our reasoning process, and giving the realization of the saints and sages, let us assume that there is such a universal being. And our question then would be, as limited, finite beings, what is our relationship with God? And, well, the answer to that's a big question. The answer to that is a progressive answer. That is, our relationship with God will change as we begin spiritual practice and as we begin our journey. Our relationship with this universal being is going to slowly grow and evolve. And once the great devotee, Hanuman, who was a devotee of Lord Rama, he was asked, what is your relationship with the Lord Rama? And Hanuman replied, Deha buddhya tadasoham jiva buddhya tadangshaka atma vidya tvam evaham iti me nishchita mati. He's saying, well, it depends. When I think of myself as the body, then I have to assume that I am the servant of God. When I think of myself as a mind, an immaterial being, then I think that I am a part of God. And when I think of myself, when I identify with my true nature, that is the Atma within, then I feel as if I am one with God. So there's the relationship. What is our relationship? It's a progressive relationship. And in fact, this Vedanta philosophy teaches us 3 different world views, depending on where we're at. And the first worldview is based on the metaphysics of substance dualism. That is, it's dualism. That's one of the teachings of this Vedanta philosophy. It begins with the assumption that there is one God. There's only one God. But God is separate from man and separate from this world. God created the world. He created man. And but he's separate from ourselves. He's like, if you look in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, Jehovah is flying through the air. He's reaching down. There's a little Adam is there. He's reaching up. Just their fingers just touch at the tip, barely. And actually, they're not even hardly touching. So that's a conception of God, of what is our relationship with God. And that, as long as we identify with our body and our psychophysical being, well, we have to be servants. We're servants of God in heaven. Second worldview. See, Vedanta teaches, it's a big philosophy. It's a philosophy that it depends on where you're at. Okay? Then it teaches a second worldview. As we journey on up the mountain, now our worldview is changing. We're changing. Our self-concept is changing. And so in the course of time, we find that God, our conception of God, that it's not about a being, so much about that being who is flying through the air up in the sky, but rather that God is in everything. This is generally a point of view which is generally called property dualism. That is, in Sanskrit it's called Vishishtadvaita. That means God has created this world, but he hasn't created it out of nothing. He's created it out of his own being. God has become everything. And then as it's put in the Upanishads, God created everything, and then he entered into it. And so that God is within everything. God has become everything. God is the heart of our hearts, the soul of our souls. And see, we're trying to understand what is our relationship with this with God, with this cosmic being. Well, at this higher stage of evolution, we realize that now we're no longer separate from God, but now we feel, that is, the saints and sages feel, that they're part of God. And that just as a cell is part of a larger tissue, and a tissue is part of the organ is part of the organism, and all the systems together make up the whole person. Similarly, we could see it's analogous, microcosm and macrocosm, that we are parts of God, just as cells are part of the larger body. Now, these parts are the parts and the whole. Let's try to look a little more at our relationship now. We're halfway up the mountain. We begin to feel as if we're parts of God. God is in everything. And, the parts and the whole are correlatives. That is, the whole can't exist without a part. That a whole has no meaning except as the sum total of the parts. So the parts and the whole are, that is, one cannot exist without the other. Similarly, it is God and man, God and the universe, the whole and the part, the unity and the diversity, the one and the many. Each of these has a correlative existence. That is, one is dependent on the other. The idea of unity is dependent on the idea of diversity. The idea of God is dependent on the idea of sum total of all individuals. The idea of the one is dependent on the many. You can't have the one without the many. And God, man, and the universe, they all have the same ontological status. And together they make up a great unified whole. But this unity is not the ultimate unity. It's not the ultimate oneness. That is, it is not the one only without a second. For that, we have to transcend the relative. Transcend this relative world and ascend to the world of the absolute. That is, we have to complete our journey from dualism to monism to Advaita. Advaita means non-dualism. Non-dualism is the crowning glory of this Vedanta philosophy. It's a teaching. There's the three world views, but the world views are not. They're not. That is to say, they are high. There's a hierarchy of views. One is higher than the other. Just as you fall, that's the metaphor. Just as you journey up a mountain, you're at the bottom of the mountain. You're halfway up the mountain. Lower truth to a higher truth, to a higher truth, and the highest unity, the ultimate reality, is the reality of non-dualism. It's the absolute. Vedanta teaches us that beyond the relative world, that means the world of soul, God, and the world, right? So you can boil everything down to like three: me, subject, object, and then something that connects the two. So you have to have the individual, the collective, and then something that connects the two: soul, God, and the universe. And but beyond soul, God, and the universe is the absolute. In Sanskrit, it's called Brahman. And Brahman is the ground of being, the substratum of all things, the substratum of God, man, and the universe. And Brahman is not one, and it's not many. Rather, it is the source of the one and the many. Now let's try to understand, what does that mean? That means if you were to visualize, see, we're trying to understand what is our relationship with the cosmic being. Now we say, as a man and God, what is our relationship between man and God? Well, visualize, for example, some circles, a piece of paper, and on the paper you draw some little circles. Circle, 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 circle. And then around all of those circles, you draw a big circle that includes all the circles. Now, the small circles are individual beings, jivas, jivatmas. The big circle is the Paramatma, that's God. The big circle includes all the little circles and is ontologically equivalent to them because it's just a circle also. But beneath the small circles and the big, the substratum is the paper. The paper is like Brahman. The paper is a deeper unity. Different kinds of, now you have three kinds of unity there. You have circle, that's a kind of a whole. Then you have a larger whole, which is a big circle, which includes all the little circles. Remember Swami Vedarupananda famously, he used to like to repeat that famous analogy attributed to different Western theologians, that man is like a circle, without a circle, no circumference, but whose center is at one point. God is like an infinite circle, which has no limit, no circumference, but his center is at every point. Brahman is like the paper, a substratum of all the circles. That is the absolute. Now, according to the Advaita worldview, the world of the many is an apparent world. That is, the circles on the paper. They represent an apparent world. That is, a circle in and of itself, the only thing that gives it substance is the paper. The circle in and of itself is just an apparent reality. The apparent world, that is the world of our experience, the individual, the world, and God, are sublated by the one only without a second. Ekam evadvitiyam. In Sanskrit, there's whole books written on that one phrase. One only without a second. That defines the ultimate reality, the absolute. And what is our relationship with the absolute? The teaching of the Vedanta philosophy is that you are identical with that. Tat tvam asi, that's the old Sanskrit aphorism. You are one with that. And you are identical with that. To be more precise, it's oneness with God, it's identity with Brahman. We move from dualism to monism to non-dualism. Here's a story from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Dva suparna sayuja sakaya samanam vriksham parisha swajate tayor anya pipalam swadvat tinashnan nanyo abichakashiti. 2 verses, also found in other Upanishads, the beautiful analogy. 2 birds are perched on the self-same tree. And we're walking through the forests, and there we look up in a tree, and there we see 2 birds. The one bird is perched on the lower branches, and there's another bird which is up on the very tippy top of the tree, perched on the highest branch. The lower bird is jumping around looking for fruits that grow on the tree. And he hops here, pecks at a particular fruit, a little bitter, hops over here, pecks at a fruit, that's a sweet. He eats that, like this, he's jumping around, eating the sweet and the bitter fruits. Meanwhile, the higher bird just sits, looks on quietly without eating. Calm, majestic, aloof. He is the witness of the whole forest. Meanwhile, the lower bird jumping around. He's gotten a particularly bitter fruit. He looks up there, way up to the top of the tree, and he sees that majestic bird. He thinks, yes, that it looks like I'd like to be like that, you know. So he jumps up one or two branches, but then he gets distracted. And he starts eating the sweet and the bitter fruits. Soon he gets another bitter fruit. Stops, looks up to the top of the tree, sees that majestic bird, sees the witness of the forest. Thinks, yes, I'd like to. That was his aspiration. So he hops up a few branches. Again, he's distracted. So like this, time passes, but slowly that lower bird, he moves up the tree. And in the course of time, one day, he's eating a sweet, bitter fruit. He gets a particular bitter fruit. He looks up, and there he sees that higher bird. And with great resolution, he hops up 1-2 branches. And then a funny thing happens. You see, he merges into that one bird. The two birds become one bird. And well, you know how sometimes if you're walking in a forest and there's a wind slowly is blowing through the leaves of the trees, that sometimes those moving leaves in the sunlight, they create shadows and kind of illusions in the branches. And so it was with these two birds. One of them, there was only one bird all along. There was no lower bird. The higher bird remains there, calm and quiet in its own glory. And so that's the analogy given in the Upanishad. The tree represents this world. It represents the axis of our own being. The lower bird, it represents the Jivatma, that is our self today. Our self, we could say, with a lower S. We have within us, we have a self with a little smaller self with a small s, self with a capital S. So the lower bird represents the ego self, we could say. The Jivatma, who is forgetful and who is caught up in the activities of life. The higher bird represents the Parama, that is, it represents the Atman, the Shuddhatma, which is our real self, and which is the witness of the one of the forest. And so we can see, however far we are down the tree, we can ask, what is our relationship with that higher, with the lower and the higher? The teaching of Vedanta is, of course, the Vedanta philosophers, they don't discuss this. You see, we have a problem with the word, American word, English word, self. We have the idea that, the self has very negative connotations, whereas in the teaching of the Vedanta philosophy, it has positive, the small s, self of the small. Are you talking about the self of the small s or the self of the capital S? Well, really, there's only one self. That is in the teaching here, that is, however far you go down the tree, you have to remember that there's really only one self. It's not like you have two selves. That there's me, and then there's something like the sky, which is like a vapor or something around the universe. No, there's only one self. And tat tvama asi, that's the teaching. You are that. You are that higher bird. And so this is the teaching of the Vedanta philosophy regarding unity in diversity. We can see that there is, in the diversity of nature, is unified in the Virat, the cosmic body. The diversity of mind is unified in the Mahat, the cosmic mind. The diversity of souls is unified in Ishvara, that is the cosmic consciousness. Together they make up a great universal cosmic man, a universal man, which is called Ishvara, the God of Vedanta. But sublating God, man, and the universe is the Brahman, the Absolute, which is the Ekam, Evadvatiyam, the one, only, without, you see, one. It's a good word in Vedanta, one. It's what's called a sliding signifier. That means it means a lot of different things depending on your context. Vedanta defines it very specifically. It doesn't just use the word one, it was ekam evadvatiyam, that is one, only, without a second. That is the absolute. That is the ultimate unity in diversity. And the goal of our spiritual life is to realize that unity. Apashantihi, Oshadaya, Shantihi, Vanaspataya, Ashantihi, Vishwehi Deva, Ashantihi, Brahma Shantihi, Saravam Shantihi, Shantireva Shantihi, Same Shantiredhi, Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is on the earth, peace is in the sky and in the waters. The herbs and plants and trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. May this eternal universal peace enter our souls and beings. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.